Greetings, family. This is Yuda. They have taken crafty counsel. I couldn't help, after reading a few comments, when I spoke about the name. I'm pretty sure all of you can agree on this one thing. There has been much confusion when it comes to the name of our Creator, which is the reason I'm bringing this forth. They have taken crafty counsel. While many prophets in the Old Testament reference the existence of other gods and idols, and by the way, the purpose for this is to show you. Now, let me say this up front, because it don't seem like people are hearing me. I'm not telling you to change. I'm not asking you to agree. I'm doing what I consider to be my responsibility, and my job is to point out something that don't make sense. While many prophets of the Old Testament reference the existence of other gods and idols, they primarily did so to criticize and condemn the worship of them. Let me explain. The old prophets, the ancient prophets, they spoke the names of other gods, but it wasn't in reference or praise. It wasn't in allegiance. It was in defiance. And there are so many people who don't understand what it means when they read that scripture that says, "Let not the name of their gods come out of your lips." I'm going to show you that that's not true. That's not what it means. You have to really put the context with whatever scripture you're reading. You cannot isolate any particular verse of scripture, because you will surely go wrong. They primarily did so to criticize. We're talking about the prophets. To criticize and condemn the worship of them, nor to endorse or promote those deities. The Old Testament often depicts prophets like Elijah, Moses, and Ezekiel, who spoke against other gods and their worship, but they also acknowledged their existence as part of the cultural and religious landscape of that time. Prophets and the existence of other gods in the Old Testament frequently acknowledges the existence of other gods and idols worshipped by various cultures and even the Israelites themselves, or should I say, correction, the Hebrews. However, the prophet's primary role was to preach the word of the Creator, to warn against idolatry and false gods. This is a multi-layered lesson, and to encourage faith in the one true Creator. Elijah's challenge. Listen carefully. Elijah's confrontation with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel is a classic example of a prophet challenging other gods and their worship. Now, how many of you have not read the scripture, or should I say, have read the scripture and spoke the word Baal? You won't be condemned for that unless you're giving praise to Baal or worshiping Baal. But every one of us that have read the book have called out these very names. So the Creator could not have meant that we are not to speak those names. He meant that we are not to give glory, reverence, or praise to those gods. 2 Kings, verse 1. Then Moab rebelled against the Hebrews after the death of Ahab. And Hazael fell down through the lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria, and was sick. And he sent messengers and said unto them, Go inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. But the angel of the Creator said to Elijah the Tishbite, Arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say unto them, Is it not because there is not a creator in the land of the Hebrews that ye go to inquire? Listen to what Elijah said. Beelzebub, I have a hard time with that word. Beelzebub, Elijah said that. He said that. Did he get struck down? Was there anything in the scriptures that condemned him? Not one thing, not one word. Elijah said that ye go inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. Elijah spoke the name Beelzebub. Isaiah mentions Lucifer. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 12, where the verse is translated as, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Is Lucifer an idol god? Of course he is. Did Isaiah speak the name out loud? Yes, he did. Son of the morning. However, the term Lucifer is a Latin translation of the Hebrew word Helil. My point is Isaiah, Elijah spoke those names. And neither one was condemned. You know why? Because they did not praise, they did not honor, they didn't glorify, they did not give allegiance. They spoke in defiance. And that's okay. So how can we be sure of the Creator's name? This is the second layer. Because we're having problems with the names. I hope that you have the eyes and ears to not only see, but hear what I'm about to tell you. Transliteration. It is the process of converting written text from one script or alphabet to another, primarily focusing on representing the sounds of characters of one writing system using the characters of another. Unlike translation, which focuses on conveying meaning, transliteration aims to preserve the pronunciation of the original text in a different script. definition of transliteration is the act of writing words using a different alphabet. This is going to make sense in a minute. Primarily to help with the pronunciation. I can see problems with this already. Transliteration is the process of representing or intending, that's a key word right there, intending to represent a word, phrase, or text in a different script or a different writing system. The Tetragrammaton is the four-letter Hebrew name of the Creator. That's what they say. And it's abbreviated or written YHWH, all caps. I'm going to bring that out too. I'm going to elaborate on that. All caps, YHWH. Derived from the verb to be or to become. In Judaism, which we are not, and that's where this comes from, the Tetragrammaton is not pronounced, but is traditionally substituted with the term Adonai, or Lord. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but back in that time, they decided, the Jewish decided that they would remove the vowels because they thought that their God was too sacred to speak out loud. Now make that make sense to me. When we are the chosen people and he wants us to call him by name, and then we're told, oh, the name is too sacred. You can't say it out loud. You cannot speak it. You have to substitute it with Adonai or Lord. And both of those words are not valid. It is also considered too sacred to be spoken. In some Jewish traditions, we are not Jews. They call us Jews. So does the people over there in the fake land. They're the Jewish. They really don't refer to us as Jews. But that's what this is pointing at. In some Jewish traditions, the Tetragrammaton is seen as the divine name representing God's essence and power. The Tetragrammaton meaning derived from the Greek word for four letters. Now, the Greeks were not our friends, but yet we take their word for the book that's supposed to belong to us. Refers to the four Hebrew consonants Y, H, W, H, all caps, Yod, Hey, Wah, Hey, that represents the name of God. The Tetragrammaton is considered too sacred to be spoken aloud by Jews. Instead, they substituted with the word Adonai, Lord, or Elohim, which is God's, when referring to God. Do y'all see something wrong with this? If not, let me point it out. Elohim is plural. It means more than one. What did our Creator tell us? You shall have no other gods beside me. Vocalizations. While the Tetragrammaton is not pronounced in Hebrew, I wonder why. There are various vocalizations or interpretations of the name, such as Yahweh or Jehovah, which have been used in different languages and traditions. Now make that make sense. One name should serve all. It shouldn't be one day Yahweh, the next day Jehovah, and the next day Yahweh, and the next day Yahuwah, and just on and on and on. Do y'all see a problem? The Tetragrammaton is a central element of Jewish and Christian faith, representing the unique and personal name of the so-called God. As for pronunciation, that has been lost through what may most likely be described as scribal error. Y'all hearing me? Scribal error, and they did a lot of that error, and there's a lot of it still there. There's traces all through the book, but you have to have a keen eye, a keen ear to be able to break it down. Plus, for the most part, you got to be in tune with your Father. You won't get it the first time, maybe not the second time, maybe not even the third time, but if you keep asking and you keep seeking, once you prove to him that you really want this, I'm a living testimony. He will eventually show it to you, and it won't be what you thought. The covenantal name of God in the Hebrew Bible is written with the 4 consonants. That is not a name. Those are letters, alphabets. Yad, He, Wap, He. This name is known as the Tetragrammaton. And here we go, our enemy, the Greek, for the 4 letters, although the Tetragrammaton was pronounced freely at the time of the Torah. This is the time when they removed the vowel. They removed the consonants and placed vowel points, which changed the name. Now, they did this. They actually did this by inserting vowel points, which changed the name, and then you got to look at this. From generation back then all the way to now, do you think that name didn't get lost? One of the best ways to remember something is to repeat it often. We learned that in school. The more you repeat it, the more it sticks. Now, in their case, they took the name out, replaced it with something else, and we've been getting all this garbage from generation to generation. So, again, although the Tetragrammaton was pronounced freely at the time of the Torah and prophets were written. Now, I got to ask this question. If they were calling on the true name back then, what in the world gave them the idea that it was not okay to use his name? What caused them to change it? I could give you one guess. Your old friend, the adversary. He stepped in and everything went gone. And the prophets were written. Its holiness in Judaism is such that it is no longer pronounced. Why? Because it is no longer remembered. except under very rare circumstances. That is not true. In order to avoid offending religious Jews, can you believe this? Listen, like I said, y'all ain't gotta believe me. I'm not here to make you believe nothing. I'm here to show you what I see. Now, if you can't see what I see, that's okay. Because listen, your salvation is an individual affair. I'm just here to help to make you think. In other words, in order to avoid offending religious Jews, one should not pronounce or misuse the name. Stringent rules also apply to writing any of the names of the Creator. For example, once God's name is written, it is to be neither erased or discarded. Now, I'll bet you anything, many of you, including myself, has written down what we thought was the name and probably don't have it anymore. Because, when you move from one house to another and you move several times, you lose stuff. Either way it goes, we've done this. You've done this. They said that it must neither be erased nor discarded. It must be stored. Can you believe this? Most English translations of the Bible represents the Tetragrammaton with Lord or God. And even that was inserted. In all capital letters. I want to show you something about all caps letters. Now, years ago, I studied commercial law, the UCC codes. Over 10 years, I know. And I noticed that here lately, when I went to look up some of those uniform commercial codes, they had changed the whole doggone thing. I'm going to tell you why. Because during this time, about 10 years ago, there were people waking up to the UCC codes, realizing how we had been duped and made chattel because of all caps letters. Let me ask you something. If you have a driver's license, look on your driver's license. I guarantee you your name is in all caps. A birth certificate, your name is in all caps. Look at any commercial building with a business. The title of that business is in all caps. Look at any police department, all caps. The ambulance service, hospitals, all caps. Social Security card, all caps. I'm going to tell you why. We were never told with full and open disclosure what the government officials were planning to do and why. We were never told that government, the United States, was a corporation, a fictitious person. Now, to prove that, pull up the Constitution and look at the very top, and you will see the United States of America in all caps. Why? Because all caps is a commercial reference, and it's a fictitious, like a DBA. When you're doing business as, it's always in all caps. That name of the business that you set up, that name is fiction. It's fiction. So now you got to wonder, why are they giving us, our Creator's letters in caps? YHWH, all caps. When they know that represents fiction. But they don't think we know. So we were never told with full and open disclosure what our government officials were planning to do and why. We were never told that government, the United States, was a corporation, a fictitious person. We were never told that the government had quietly, almost secretly, created a shadow, which is now called, or was called, a straw man for each and every American. So that the government could not only control the people, but also raise an almost unlimited amount of revenue. I'm going to tell y'all something. When I was studying commerce law, I found out something that blew my mind. Of course, you won't be able to do this, but every one of you that has a birth certificate, that birth certificate is traded on the New York Stock Exchange and it's worth millions. And I know this to be fact because on the back of your Social Security card, there is numbers. The first part of those numbers is the location of a bank. The second part of those numbers is an account. I looked it up. Mine was in New York City. I don't remember the name of the bank anymore. That's been years ago. But that came up. When I put those numbers in, that bank came up. Yeah. Our birth certificates are like a title deed to us. And we are traded on the New York Stock Exchange. I know this to be a fact. Now, like I said, when I went back a couple of years ago to refresh my memory, it was all gone. It all changed. It's hard to even find UCC codes now. You can find them if you know how to look for them. Why am I telling you this? That's what they're doing to us. They have made us into slaves without the yoke around our necks. They are making millions of dollars with your birth certificate. And something else. Do you know why you have to sign every document that you encounter when you're doing business with the government or anybody else? Your signature has value. That's why they have to have you sign it. When you get a traffic ticket, the first thing they want you to do is sign that ticket, even though you don't have to sign it, because that's a contract. I also studied contract law. You don't have to sign a contract if you don't agree with it, but they'll make you think you have to sign it. The reason they do that is because that piece of paper with your signature on it is valuable. They have to have your signature. But also raise an almost unlimited amount of revenue so it could continue not just to exist but to grow. We were never told that when government deals with the straw man is not you. You do not sign your name in all caps. That is only for commercialized transactions. So we were never told that when government deals with the straw man, it is not dealing with real, living men and women. We were never told openly and clearly with full disclosure of all the facts that since June the 5th, 1933, we have been unable to pay our debts. We were never told that we had been pledged, and our children, and their children, and their children, and on and on. Every time you have a child and you sign that birth certificate, you turn that child over to the state. That's the reason for CPS, Child Protective Services. They own your children. That's why they can bogart into your house. You gave them the contract. And your children and their children and their children's children and on as collateral, mere chattel, for the debt created by the government officials who committed treason in doing this. We were never told that they quietly and cleverly changed the rules, even the game itself, and that the world we perceive as real is in fact fictional. And it's all over their benefit. It's all for their benefit. We were never told that the straw man, a fictional person, a creature of the state, is subject to all the codes, statutes, rules, regulations, ordinances, etc. decreed by government, but we, the real men and women, are not. Let me make that clear. If you sign your name in all caps, then you are under this rule. And that's not how you sign your name. Nobody here signs their name in all caps. Nobody. While living in the land of the free, let me start over. We were never told that we were being treated as property, as slaves, albeit comfortably for some, while living in the land of the free, and that we could easily walk away from the fraud. Used to be the case, not now. Like I said, I went back and looked over all the information that used to be there. It has been changed. It is now denying all of this. I don't know if y'all are familiar with accepted for value. I studied, that's a part of commercial law. Let me tell you a little story about that. When I discovered how to do this, I ended up in the hospital for a week. They sent me a bill for $6,000. I sent them a accepted for value letter. Now there is a particular way you have to do this. When I sent them that letter, I never heard from them again. This was the statute of the UCC codes, which created a fictional name for a corporation. All caps letters are on all commercial transactions. Now, can you understand why they print our creators' so-called abbreviations or letters in all caps? Listen, y'all, y'all don't know who y'all dealing with. The creator told you it was the most clever beast in the field. I think y'all underestimated this beast. They won't stop at nothing, and they got the control. They got the backup. They got the power. This was the statute of the UCC codes, which created a fictional name for a corporation. All caps letters are on all commercial transactions. That means as long as you have a driver's license, you are considered operating in commerce. That's the reason why they can pull you over on the highway and write you a ticket. You are their property. So you have to follow their rules. Man, I almost wrote a book on this. So yeah, the government sees us as commercial property. The proof is on your driver's license and your birth certificate. Now, I ask why? Whenever we see the so-called name of the Creator, it's always in caps. In the UCC codes, all caps is a fictional corporation. Now, can you tie capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital Y to the commercial? Remember who's running the world. Remember who's running the country. That's their business. Parts of our book has been commercialized, and we are property. This is the reason I tell y'all, watch the names, watch the words, and don't take nothing for granted. Now, I know all of y'all know and have probably been involved in this yourself at one point or another, arguing with somebody that think they got the name right, and you think you got the name right, and that person over there thinks they got the name right, and none of y'all agree on nothing. You see the confusion? Do you think that's the way we were intended by the Creator, to operate in confusion? Was that his purpose for us? I don't think so. Now let me tell you this. When we went into captivity, what did they take from us? They took our holy book. They took our children. They took our freedom. They took our rights. They took the clothes we wore. They took our mothers. They took our fathers. They took our families. They took many of our lives. They took our native tongue. They took our values. They took our land. They took the bond of family. They took the right to be secure in your person, and much, much, much more. More than I care to write here on this page. Jeremiah chapter 9 verse 6 says, "You live in the midst of deception. In their deceit they refuse to acknowledge me, declares the Creator." Listen, y'all. One thing I will never do, I will never force nothing on you. I will never demand that you take my word for nothing. I will never tell you you have to believe everything I say. But as for me, I'm not touching those names. Job chapter 15 verse 35. They conceive trouble and give birth to evil. Their womb fashions deceit. Crafty counsel. It means advice or plans that are cunning, deceitful, and intended to manipulate or harm others. It suggests a deliberate and skillful but often malicious approach to persuasions or planning. As far as I'm concerned, there is only one Creator. This is the only thing that we can all be sure of. I guarantee it. Shalom.